blood has a price. Maya Chen always knew this as a doctor, but never imagined her father's debt would cost her own veins. When the mysterious collector Kane arrives to claim what's owed, 12 pints of her blood over 12 months, she believes it's just a supernatural transaction. Clinical, detached, survivable. But something happens during their first collection that defies the ancient rules. A forbidden bond begins to form between them, one that could destroy them both if discovered. As Maya feels herself changing with each drop taken, she uncovers a terrifying truth. The supernatural authority that holds their contract will eliminate anyone who threatens their system. Now Maya must choose. Honor the debt that's slowly draining her life, or fight for a connection that feels more real than anything she's ever known. The clock is ticking, and Kane's dual nature, half angel, half demon, is becoming as unstable as their growing feelings. What would you sacrifice for someone who was meant to take everything from you? The blood looked wrong under the fluorescent lights. Too dark, too thick. Maya Chen stared at the vial between her gloved fingers, tilting it slightly. She'd drawn enough blood in her 3 years as a resident to know when something wasn't right. The patient's chart said simple anemia, but this was something else entirely. Dr. Chen, trauma coming in 5 minutes. The nurse's voice startled her. Maya nodded, slipping the strange sample into her lab. Coat pocket instead of the collection tray. She'd examine it later. Something about it called to her. The emergency room doors slid open, letting in a gust of October air that raised goosebumps on her arms. Or maybe it wasn't the cold. Maybe it was him. The man stood quietly among the waiting patients, yet somehow occupied more space than physically possible. Tall, with shoulders that seemed to carry invisible weight. His face bore a scar running from temple to jaw, not jagged, but precise, almost surgical in its placement, too perfect to be an accident. Their eyes met across the room. His left eye caught the light, warm amber that seemed to glow from within. His right remained in shadow. Maya looked away first. 22 hours into a 36-hour shift, she couldn't trust her perceptions anymore. The hallucinations had been getting worse since Dad died. Little inconsistencies in reality that her colleagues attributed to her chronic insomnia. Another all-nighter, Chen? Dr. Patel glanced at her as they scrubbed in for the incoming trauma. 3rd this week, she admitted, scrubbing harder than necessary. What she didn't say, sleep meant nightmares of her father's final days. Of finding him in the home lab, surrounded by blood samples, his own, labeled with dates and strange symbols. Of the experimental treatments that drained their savings and still failed to save him. Of the medical school loans crushing her, with collection notices growing increasingly threatening. The trauma came and went. A car accident victim stabilized, prepped for surgery. Routine, if saving lives could ever be called that. When her shift finally ended, Maya found herself not heading home, but to the small lab in the hospital basement where she sometimes ran private tests. Dad had taught her techniques that weren't in medical textbooks, ways to read blood that bordered on intuitive rather than scientific. The sample she'd pocketed earlier sat under the microscope. Definitely not normal anemia. The cells moved almost purposefully, clustering and separating in patterns that reminded her of murmurations of starlings. Fascinating, isn't it? Maya jerked upright. The man from the waiting room stood in the doorway. Impossible, since this area required keycard access. His scar caught the dim light, and for a heartbeat, it seemed to shift from its clean line into something more jagged, like a lightning strike, before settling back. "How did you get in here?" she demanded, instinctively pocketing the blood sample. "The same way you did." He stepped inside, closing the door. "Through connection. I'm calling security. That's your father's technique." He nodded toward the microscope. The pattern recognition through cellular movement. He called it blood whispering. Rather poetic for a scientist. Maya's finger froze over the phone. "You knew my father?" "I knew of his work." He approached slowly, each step deliberate. "My name is Kane. I have a proposition regarding his unfinished business. My father didn't have unfinished business. He had cancer. Is that what he told you? Kane's eyes, both now visible in the light, were strangely mismatched. The left warm amber, the right so dark it seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Your father signed a contract, Dr. Chen. A blood contract. And debts don't die with the debtor. A chill ran through her that had nothing to do with the basement's temperature. Get out before you what? He was suddenly closer, though she hadn't seen him move. Call security on the patient from room 412? The one with the rare blood disorder you've been treating since yesterday? Maya's mouth went dry. That was the room she'd drawn the strange blood sample from, but that patient had been a 70-year-old woman with iron deficiency. I don't have time for games, she said, reaching again for the phone. His hand caught hers, warm, almost feverish. Where his skin touched hers, she felt a jolt, like static electricity but deeper, resonating in her bones. Neither do I, Dr. Chen. You have something that belongs to me. Something your father promised. What could he possibly have promised you? Maya pulled her hand away, heart hammering against her ribs. 12 pints, Kane said simply. Paid in installments or all at once. Your choice. 12 pints. The entire blood volume of an adult human. You're insane. Maya backed toward the door. I assure you. I'm not. As he spoke, the lights flickered, and in that moment of semi-darkness, Maya could have sworn she saw veins beneath his skin glow gold along one side of his face, while dark shadows crawled like ink through the veins on the other side. What are you? The words escaped before she could stop them. Someone with a schedule to keep. He reached into his pocket and withdrew what looked like an ancient parchment, yellowed and creased. Your father's signature. And here, his finger traced a line at the bottom. The succession clause. In the event of death before fulfillment, obligation transfers to closest blood relation. Maya snatched the document. Her father's signature, unmistakable, with its peculiar loop on the G, stared back at her. Beside it, a dark brownish stain that could only be blood. This isn't legal, she whispered. It's binding all the same. Kane reached out, taking back the contract. I'll give you 3 days to consider payment options. Installments are easier, more survivable. Or what? Or I collect in full. His eyes, both of them, fixed on hers. And I assure you, Dr. Chen, nobody survives that. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. Your father wasn't a bad man, just desperate, like most who make deals with my kind. Your kind? Maya's scientific mind struggled to process what was happening. In your terms? A smile that didn't reach his eyes. Nephilim. Neither angel nor demon, both cursed with collection duty. His, scar seemed to pulse, the edges blurring between clean and jagged. 3 days, doctor. I suggest you rest while you can. The door closed behind him, leaving Maya alone with the microscope, the strange blood sample, and the dawning realization that her father's debts might cost more than money. She reached for her phone with trembling fingers, scrolling to patient 412. The profile showed a 70-year-old woman with iron deficiency, but the admission photo showed Kane, staring directly into the camera, scar prominent against pale skin, mismatched eyes seeming to look beyond the screen directly at her. Maya dropped the phone as if burned. 3 days. Kane watched Maya Chen through the hospital window from across the street. 48 hours had passed since their encounter in the basement lab. She hadn't gone home once. Smart woman. Hospitals had thresholds, natural barriers against his kind. Not impenetrable, but complicated. She was buying time. His scar throbbed, the sensation intensifying as the internal war between his natures escalated. The angelic half whispered that pursuing a daughter for her father's debt was unjust. The demonic half reminded him of consequences for failed collection, his own disintegration, molecule by molecule, starting with his mind. She's innocent, his angelic side argued silently. The contract doesn't care, the demonic replied. When the debate became unbearable, he pressed 2 fingers against the scar, feeling it shift from surgical precision to jagged tear beneath his touch. The pain centered him. Pain was real. Pain was now. The contract in his pocket burned like dry ice, cold enough to sear flesh. 12 hours remained in his 3-day ultimatum. He'd need to breach the hospital threshold soon. Inside, Maya stifled a yawn as she updated patient charts at the nurse's station. 2 nights without sleep had left dark circles beneath her eyes, but fear proved a powerful stimulant. She'd spent hours researching Nephilim. Between rounds, finding only biblical references to angel-human hybrids. Nothing about debt collection or blood contracts. Her father's journals yielded no answers either. They'd been delivered in boxes after his death, research notes, experimental designs, personal observations, but nothing about deals with supernatural collectors. Dr. Chen? A nurse approached, concern evident. Your patient in 427 is asking for you specifically. 427? Maya frowned. That's not... He insisted. Says it's about your father. Maya's heart stuttered. She hadn't assigned herself to any new patients since her encounter with Cain. Hospital security had found no record of any unauthorized visitors in the lab that night, and patient 412 remained a 70-year-old woman with iron deficiency. Did he give a name? She asked, already knowing the answer. Cain. No last name. Said you'd know him. The nurse handed her the chart. The admission photo showed an elderly man, with cataracts. But Maya knew better now. She'd been treating hallucinations as symptoms of exhaustion. But what if her perceptions were actually clearer than the hospital's systems? I'll see him, she said, surprising herself with steady hands as she accepted the chart. Room 427 should have been impossible. Maya had made sure to stay in the pediatric wing, sacred ground of sorts, filled with innocence. Yet somehow he'd found a way through. She stopped outside the door, watching, through the narrow window. The elderly man in the bed transformed before her eyes, features melting away to reveal Cain's sharp angles and distinctive scar. No one else passing in the hallway seemed to notice. Maya entered, closing the door behind her. Hiding in pediatrics. Cain's voice carried quiet appreciation. Clever. Children's wards are difficult for my kind to navigate. What are you? Maya remained by the door, keeping maximum distance in the small room. I told you. Nephilim. That's a label, not an explanation. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Half angel, half demon, all collector. The Cosmic Debt Recovery Service. And my father owed you... blood? Not me personally. The entity I represent. Cain sat up, hospital gown falling away to reveal a chest marked with what appeared to be ancient text, scrolling beneath his skin like living tattoos. They shifted between gold and black as if fighting for dominance. Why would he do that? Maya's scientific mind still sought logical explanations. The usual reason. He was dying and wanted more time. Cain's mismatched eyes, one warm amber, one midnight black, studied her. He got 3 extra years. Maya calculated backward. 3 years ago, her father had been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Doctors had given him weeks. Instead, he'd lived long enough to see her finish residency. He traded his blood for time, she whispered, and ran out of both. Maya's medical training kicked in, desperate to find an alternate diagnosis. You could be an elaborate hallucination. Sleep deprivation causes psychosis. Does it cause this? Cain extended his hand, palm up. The air above his hand shimmered, then solidified into a small glass vial filled with dark fluid, identical to the sample she'd taken from patient 412. My blood, he explained. The sample you stole. I didn't. You did. Curiosity, a family trait. No accusation in his voice, merely observation. Have you studied it? They hesitated. It's not human blood. The cellular structure is wrong. It moves differently. Half angelic essence, half demonic ichor, encased in human form. He rotated the vial between his fingers. Neither heaven nor hell wants us, so we serve the contract authority, collect debts, enforce terms. The vial vanished with a flick of his wrist. I can't give you 12 pints, Maya said. That would kill me. Hence the installment option. How much per installment? Kane's eyes narrowed. Surprise evident. You're considering payment? I'm considering options. Something shifted in his expression. Respect, perhaps. 1 pint monthly for 12 months. Survivable, though not pleasant. And each payment goes to this contract authority. Through me, I'm the conduit. He leaned forward. Your father understood the terms. Then why didn't he fulfill them? Kane's scar pulsed, momentarily changing from surgical precision to jagged tear. He tried. The last collection weakened him. Significantly. He died before the final payment. A terrible suspicion formed. Did taking his blood kill him? No. The word came too quickly, the amber eye flaring bright while the dark one seemed to absorb surrounding light. The cancer returned. The contract bought time, not cure. Maya stepped closer, medical curiosity overriding fear. What happens when you collect? The question clearly surprised him. Collectors weren't asked about process. I draw the blood, he said carefully. But, unlike your sterile needles, I use... He hesitated, then extended his hand again. The fingertips elongated slightly, nails sharpening to translucent points that caught the fluorescent light. More direct methods. Maya's breath caught. You drink it. I process it. The authority receives what it needs through me. And what do you get from this arrangement? His expression darkened. Continued existence. The hospital intercom crackled. Code blue? Pediatrics? Code blue. Maya's pager vibrated. Simultaneously. Child in crisis. Training took over. I have to go. She turned toward the door. Our business isn't finished, Kane reminded her. My deadline isn't up. She met his gaze without flinching. And I save lives, not take them. Something flickered across his face, the angel side momentarily ascendant. Go. Maya rushed out, mind spinning between medical emergency and supernatural threat. By the time the crisis ended, a 5-year-old saved from anaphylactic shock, she'd made her decision. She returned to room 427, but found it empty. No sign Kane had ever been there. The nurse at the station insisted no patient had been admitted to that room today. The shift changed. Maya clocked out, but didn't head home. Instead, she went to the hospital chapel, a small room with stained glass and wooden pews. If Kane was what he claimed, perhaps sacred space would provide answers. She sat alone, her father's journal open in her lap. One entry caught her attention, dated exactly 3 years ago. The treatment worked. Not how they said, but it worked. The price is steep, but seeing Maya graduate will be worth it. Her vision blurred with tears. I hoped you'd come here. Kane stood in the chapel doorway, somehow dimmer within the sacred threshold. His scar looked angrier, more pronounced. I'll pay, Maya said quietly. Installments. He studied her, the amber eye gleaming in the candlelight. Why? Because my father chose this. Because debts should be honored. She closed the journal. But I have conditions. You're not in a position to negotiate. I disagree. She stood, facing him directly. You need this as much as I need to survive it. So we're doing this my way. Or not at all. For the briefest moment, Kane's composure cracked. Both eyes flashed. The amber brightening to gold, the black deepening impossibly. His scar shifted rapidly between surgical precision and jagged tear. Then stillness. A decision reached. "Name your terms," he said. "Tomorrow night, my apartment." Maya wrote her address on the back of her father's journal page. 10 o'clock. He accepted the paper, fingers brushing hers. That same electric shock traveled up her arm, but this time she didn't pull away. "You're either very brave," Kane said quietly, "or very foolish." Maya Chen, who hadn't slept in 3 days and had just agreed to give her blood to a supernatural debt collector, felt her lips curve into a tired smile. "Maybe I'm just my father's daughter." Maya's apartment felt foreign after so many consecutive hospital shifts. Dust had settled on the untouched surfaces, mail piled up on the entry table, and the silence pressed against her eardrums after the constant beeping of monitors and overhead pages. 10 o'clock approached. She'd slept fitfully through the day, dreams fractured by images of her father hunched over his home lab, surrounded by vials of his own blood. In her dreams, the blood moved of its own accord, forming patterns that almost spelled words. She'd set up the living room with clinical precision: alcohol swabs, gauze, medical tape, and an armchair positioned under the strongest light. Professional, detached, as if this were merely another medical procedure. The framed photo of her father watched from the bookshelf. James Chen in his lab coat, arm around a younger Maya at her white coat ceremony. His proud smile revealed nothing of the supernatural contract that was keeping him alive even then. 9:57. Maya checked her phone. No messages from the hospital. She'd called in sick for the first time in her residency, unable to imagine performing delicate procedures after whatever was about to happen. 9:58. The lights flickered once, briefly. The temperature seemed to drop several degrees. 9:59. A knock at the door, not from the hallway entrance, but from the balcony, 14 stories up. Maya didn't scream. She'd stopped being surprised by impossibilities the moment she'd seen veins glow beneath Kane's skin. She walked to the glass door, parting the curtains. Kane stood on her narrow balcony, coat collar turned up against the autumn wind, scar silvery in the moonlight. No sign of wings or levitation, or any explanation for his presence. 14 stories above street level. She slid the door open, cool air rushing into the heated apartment. "You're punctual." Her voice sounded steadier than she felt. "Time is the one debt no one can restructure." He stepped inside, presence immediately filling the small space. "You've prepared." Maya gestured toward the armchair. "My conditions are simple. I control the environment. I draw the blood myself, standard procedure, 1 pint exactly. You explain what happens to it afterward." Kane's mismatched eyes, amber and black, studied her face, then the medical supplies. Something like amusement crossed his features. "Your medical methods won't work for this transaction." "Then explain what will." Maya crossed her arms, defensive. "I'm not letting you sink fangs or claws or whatever into me without understanding the process." He moved toward the chair, shrugging off his coat. Underneath, he wore a simple gray shirt, the collar revealing the edge of those strange, shifting inscriptions on his chest. "The collection is intimate," he said carefully. "I must draw the blood directly, but I can control the sensation. It needn't be painful." Maya's medical mind conjured images of tourniquets and venipuncture. "I need specifics." Kane sat, rolling up his sleeve. Along his forearm, veins became visible. Not the blue of human vasculature, but gold and black intertwined like warring snakes beneath his skin. "May I demonstrate?" Hesitantly, Maya approached. He extended his hand, palm up. An invitation, not a demand. She placed her fingertips in his palm. That now familiar electric sensation returned, stronger, like static electricity but deeper, resonating in her marrow. "The connection must be established first," he explained, voice lower. "A temporary bond that allows the transfer." His fingers closed gently around hers. The electric feeling intensified, spreading up her arm, across her chest, settling somewhere behind her sternum. "What is that?" she whispered. "Recognition. My blood acknowledging yours." The gold in his left eye brightened. Your father felt it too. The thought of her father experiencing this same strange connection with the being before her should have felt wrong. Instead, it forged another link between them, another shared secret. "Once the connection forms," Kane continued, "I can draw the blood without breaking skin. The authority requires essence, not just cells and plasma. That's not scientifically possible." A slight smile. "Neither am I." He turned her hand, tracing the delicate blue veins visible at her wrist. Where his fingertip passed, her skin tingled, blood rushing to the surface as if called. "I can take from anywhere," he said, quietly. "Wrist is traditional but impersonal. Neck is faster but more dominating. Inner elbow is medical, like your needles." Maya pulled her hand back, clinical detachment wavering. "This isn't what I agreed to. You agreed to payment. This is how it works." No cruelty in his voice, merely fact. "I'm offering choices within the constraints." She stepped back, processing. The medical supplies she'd arranged now seemed naive, like a child's tea set before a formal dinner. If my father did this 12 times, there would be records, marks. The physical trace fades within hours. Kane remained seated, giving her space. But the connection lingers longer with each transfer. Connection? Maya's pulse quickened. "You didn't mention side effects." "Not side effects, integral to the process." He leaned forward, elbows on knees. "Each collection binds us fractionally closer. It's how the authority ensures collectors complete the contract. By the final payment, we're invested in the outcome." The implication settled heavily. "You form an addiction to your donors?" "A bond," he corrected. "Different, deeper." Maya paced the small living room, her father's photo catching her eye with each turn. What had this process been like for him? What kind of connection had formed between him and Kane during those collections? "I need to understand exactly what I'm agreeing to." "I can show you." Kane held out his hand again. Not a full collection, just enough to demonstrate. Everything in her medical training screamed against this unknown procedure. Everything in her exhausted, curious mind pushed her forward. She placed her hand in his again. The connection flared instantly this time, as if it had merely been dormant rather than broken. Kane's fingers encircled her wrist gently, and the strange warmth spread up her arm. "Close your eyes," he instructed. She did. "Breathe slowly." She inhaled deeply, exhaled. Then came the sensation. A gentle pull from somewhere deep. In her veins. Not painful, but intense. As if some essential part of her was being called forth. Warmth spread from her wrist to her chest, then throughout her body. Behind closed eyelids, colors bloomed. Gold and black intertwining, mirroring the patterns she'd seen beneath his skin. For an instant, she felt disconnected from her physical form, aware only of the pulsing rhythm of her heart and the answering rhythm from Kane. Then pressure at her wrist, his thumb stroking once, twice, and the sensation receded. Maya opened her eyes. The room spun briefly, then stabilized. Kane's face had changed subtly. The scars seemed less pronounced, the lines around his eyes softer. His mismatched eyes watched her with something like concern. That was... She struggled for words. "A fraction of the actual process," he finished. "One drop, not one pint." Maya looked at her wrist. No mark, no puncture. Yet she felt the ghost of his touch like a brand beneath her skin. "And this connection, it gets stronger each time?" "Yes." No elaboration, but something in his tone suggested complex history. "With my father too?" Kane's expression shifted, the scar momentarily flaring into its jagged form before settling again. "Yes." The simple confirmation sparked an unexpected jealousy. This intimate connection had existed between Kane and her father for 3 years, 12 collections, creating a bond she hadn't known about, couldn't have understood. Were you there? When he died? The question escaped, before she could consider its implications. Pain flashed across Kane's features. Genuine, surprising. Yes, he knew the cancer had returned. Called me for the final collection, hoping it might buy more time. But it didn't. No. The word carried weight. He used his last moments to speak of you. Tears pricked at Maya's eyes. What did he say? That everything he'd done, every deal, every sacrifice, was to see you become the doctor you are now. Kane's voice softened. And that he feared you'd inherited his curiosity about things better left unexplored. A laugh escaped through Maya's gathering tears. That sounded exactly like her father. Proud and worried in the same breath. I would have been there, she whispered, if I'd known how little time was left. He wanted to protect you from this world. Kane gestured between them. From what I am. What he became entangled with. And now I'm entangled too. By choice, Kane reminded her. You could still walk away. Maya wiped her eyes. Decision crystallizing. No, I couldn't. She rolled up her sleeve, extending her arm. 1 pint, from the inner elbow. Start there and we'll see how it goes. Kane studied her face, searching for uncertainty. Finding none, he nodded once. Lie down, he instructed, indicating the couch. The first collection is disorienting. Maya complied, the clinical part of her noting her elevated heart rate, the dryness of her mouth, the hyper-awareness of her own pulse points as Kane knelt beside the couch. He rolled up his own sleeve again, revealing those strange dual-colored veins. When he took her arm, she noticed a tremor in his hands, barely perceptible, but there. This will forge the beginning of our bond, he said, voice low. 12 collections, 12 months. Are you certain? Maya looked at her father's photo across the room, then back to the Nephilim kneeling beside her couch. Her father's debt collector, now hers. I'm certain. Kane's eyes, both the amber and the black, seemed to glow from within as he lowered his mouth to the crook of her elbow. The last thing Maya saw before closing her eyes was his scar transforming completely from the clean surgical line to a jagged tear, as if the dual sides of his nature were at war over what they were about to do. Then came the pull, 1,000 times stronger than the demonstration, and Maya Chen felt herself falling into gold and black oblivion. Kane had warned her about the after effects, but warnings were intellectual exercises. Experience was another matter entirely. 3 days after the first collection, Maya still felt the echo of it in her veins, a phantom pull, like the ghost sensation amputees described. Her colleagues attributed her pallor to her infamous workaholic tendencies. Only she felt the difference, the subtle weight of absence, of something essential having departed. But there was something else too, something new. She felt him. Not thoughts or specific emotions, but presence. A constant awareness, like a compass needle oriented toward a distant magnetic field. Sometimes sharp and distinct, sometimes muted, but never gone. Maya checked her phone. 7 new messages from Dr. Patel asking about her sudden absence, concerned she'd finally burned out. Her fingers hovered over the screen, composing and deleting 3 different responses. The truth was inadmissible. That she'd given blood to a supernatural debt collector. That she now sensed his location across the city like a persistent itch beneath her skin. That she'd spent hours researching blood bonds and Nephilim connections instead of patient files. She settled on a vague response about a family emergency, then tossed the phone aside. The bond was the real emergency. Kane had described it clinically. Each collection binds us fractionally closer, but failed to explain the constant pull, the strange dreams of gold and black veins intertwining, the moments when her heartbeat seemed to sync with a second rhythm not her own. Her doorbell rang. Maya froze. She already knew who stood outside, had felt his approach for the past 20 minutes, the awareness intensifying with proximity. She opened the door to find Kane looking as unsettled as she felt. The perpetual composure had frayed around the edges. His scar seemed more pronounced, shifting subtly between its surgical precision and jagged tear as she watched. "You feel it too," she said. Not a question. "It's stronger than it should be." His voice was rougher than she remembered. First collections usually establish only minimal connection. She stepped back, allowing him into the apartment. Define minimal. Awareness within close proximity. Not. He gestured vaguely between them. This. The constant pull. The dreams. The moments when she'd found herself turning toward the eastern part of the city, where she somehow knew he was located. "You didn't have this with my father?" The question emerged sharper than intended. Kane's eyes, amber and black, flickered to her face. "No." "Then why me?" "I don't know." The admission seemed to cost him. "The authority doesn't explain. We collect. That's all." Maya paced the living room, medical mind cataloging symptoms, searching for patterns. Could it be genetic? Blood type compatibility? Cellular resonance? "This isn't a medical condition to diagnose, Dr. Chen." "Isn't it?" She stopped pacing. "My blood is inside you now. 1 pint of it. That's biology, chemistry, that's science. It's more than science." "Prove it." Something dangerous flashed across his face, the demonic side asserting dominance. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. "Feel this," he said quietly. A sudden wave of emotion slammed into Maya. Rage, hunger, and beneath it, a loneliness so vast and ancient it stole her breath. Her knees buckled, vision swimming with gold and black spots. Then it was gone. Kane stood exactly where he had been, but something had changed. A wall had dropped, momentarily, then raised again. "That was you," she whispered, steadying herself against the kitchen counter. "A fraction of me." His voice was controlled again. The momentary lapse sealed away. "The bond goes both ways, Dr. Chen. Be careful what you ask for." Maya swallowed hard, recalibrating her understanding. Not just a physical connection, then. Something deeper, more complex. "Does the authority know about this?" she asked. "They know everything about the collections." He moved to the window, looking out over the city lights. "The bonds are how they monitor us." "Monitor? Like supervision?" "Like control." His scar pulsed, the pattern shifting more rapidly now. Nephilim who fail to complete contracts or attempt to break bonds are recalled. The clinical euphemism hung in the air. "They kill you," Maya translated. "Worse." No elaboration followed. She studied his profile against the window. The strong jaw, the tense shoulders, the scar that couldn't decide which form to take. For the first time, she saw him as something beyond a supernatural debt collector, something potentially as trapped as she was. "You need these collections as much as the authority does," she realized aloud. His silence was confirmation enough. "If I refuse to continue, don't." He turned, eyes flaring, gold brightening, black deepening. "That path benefits neither of us." The vehemence surprised her. "I wasn't planning to. I honor my commitments." Something like relief crossed his features before the mask of neutrality returned. Maya approached slowly, medical curiosity overriding caution. "The scar, it changes based on which side is dominant, doesn't it? Angel or demon?" Kane's hand rose unconsciously to the mark. "Yes. And right now?" He met her gaze. "Neither has full control. That's unusual. Because of our bond?" A slight nod. "Perhaps. May I?" She raised her hand tentatively. After a moment's hesitation, he inclined his head in permission. Maya's fingers traced the edge of the scar, currently in its transitional state, neither perfectly straight nor jaggedly torn. The skin felt different from human tissue, warmer, almost vibrating with contained energy. Where her fingers made contact, gold light bloomed beneath his skin, tracing the path of veins downward from the scar, disappearing beneath his collar. Cain inhaled sharply but didn't pull away. "The angelic side responds to you," he said, voice strained. "Is that good or bad?" "Complicated." He caught her wrist gently, lowering her hand but not releasing it. "The bond isn't supposed to work this way. Tell me how it is supposed to work." He hesitated, then relented. Distance, professional detachment, gradual strengthening over 12 collections, never exceeding the minimum connection required for the contract. And instead, I feel your presence across the city. Instead, I know your heartbeat increased by 7 beats per minute when I walked through that door. His voice lowered. Instead, my scar can't decide which nature should respond to you. Maya felt her pulse quicken further, proving his point. Is it dangerous? Everything about this is dangerous. He released her wrist. But the next collection isn't due for 29 days. By then, we'll know more. The thought of waiting nearly a month with this constant awareness, this pull toward him, seemed impossible. "And if it gets worse?" she asked. "It will." No false reassurance, just fact. The question is how much worse, and whether we can control it. Maya considered this, the doctor in her automatically calculating risks and benefits. We should document it, track changes, establish parameters. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Ever the scientist. "Do you have a better suggestion?" "No." He moved toward the door. "But proximity intensifies the bond. For both our sakes, I should maintain distance between collections." He was right, of course. Distance was logical, professional. Yet as he reached for the doorknob, Maya felt an irrational urge to stop him, to keep him within sight, within reach. The feeling wasn't entirely her own, she realized. The bond was already influencing her judgment. Wait. She retrieved a business card from her wallet, scribbling her personal number on the back. If something changes, if the bond becomes problematic, call me. Cain accepted the card, tucking it into his pocket without looking at it. 29 days, Dr. Chen. Maya, she corrected. Automatically. If you're going to be inside my blood, you might as well use my first name. Something shifted in his expression, a softening around the eyes, a brief transition of the scar toward its more angular form. Maya. Her name and his voice sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. He opened the door, pausing on the threshold. The dreams. They're normal, part of the adjustment. Relief flooded her. You have them too? Yes. A moment's hesitation. They'll become more vivid after each collection. What happens in yours? The question was too personal, too intimate, but she couldn't stop herself. Cain's mismatched eyes met hers, and for an instant, the professional distance vanished. I see your blood moving through my veins, he said quietly. Changing me. Before she could respond, he was gone, the door closing behind him. Maya pressed her palm against the wood, feeling the phantom connection stretching between them as he moved away. Not broken, just extended, like a rubber band pulled taut. In the bathroom mirror, she examined herself, paler than usual, dark circles prominent beneath her eyes. Standard post-blood donation symptoms, except for the strange luminosity of her skin in certain lights, as if something golden now moved beneath the surface. Her phone chimed with a text from Dr. Patel. Meeting tomorrow 9 a.m. Mandatory. Concerns about your hours. Reality intruding. The normal world with its schedules and responsibilities continued spinning while her life had veered into supernatural debt collection and blood bonds. Maya typed a confirmation, then set an alarm. 29 days until the next collection. 29 days to understand what was happening between her and Cain. 29 days to prepare for the bond to deepen. As she lay in bed that night, Maya felt the distance between them like a physical sensation. Miles measured in heartbeats. Somewhere across the city, Cain was there, connected to her through blood and whatever else the authority had woven into their contract. She closed her eyes, and the dreams began again. Gold and black veins intertwining, pulses synchronizing, and beneath it all, a growing hunger that wasn't entirely her own. Something was wrong. 23 days after the first collection, 6 days before the scheduled second, Maya felt it. A discordant note in the constant awareness that had become background music in her consciousness. The steady pull toward Cain had suddenly become erratic, pulsing with something that felt like pain. She was performing rounds when it hit. The clipboard slipped from her fingers, clattering against the hospital floor as she braced herself against the wall. Not her pain, but his, transmitted through whatever metaphysical tether connected them. "Dr. Chen?" A nurse approached, concern evident. "Are you all right?" Maya forced herself upright. "Fine, just dizzy for a moment." She wasn't fine. The bond, which had maintained a consistent hum of awareness for weeks, now blared like an alarm. Something was happening to Cain, something violent enough to breach the careful distance he'd maintained. "I need to take my break now," she told the charge nurse, already removing her lab coat. Family emergency. Outside the hospital, Maya closed her eyes, focusing on the bond. Direction. She could sense it like a compass needle, pulling her eastward toward the industrial district. Distance. Miles, not blocks, requiring transportation. She hailed a taxi, giving directions based on nothing but the insistent tug behind her sternum. "This doesn't look right," the driver said 20 minutes later, eyeing the abandoned warehouses. "You sure this is where you want to be, lady?" Maya handed him cash. "I'm sure." The sensation grew stronger as she walked between derelict buildings, windows broken, walls covered in graffiti. Not a place anyone would choose to be, especially as dusk approached. Yet the pull was unmistakable. Cain was here, and something was very wrong. A sound echoed between buildings, glass shattering, followed by what might have been a cry of pain. Maya broke into a run, following both the noise and the bond's insistent tug. The warehouse door hung partially open, rusty hinges protesting as she pushed through. Inside, shadows stretched from broken machinery and fallen support beams. Dust particles danced in the few shafts of fading daylight that penetrated the gloom. "Cain?" Her voice echoed. No answer, but the bond pulsed stronger, guiding her deeper into the cavernous space. She found him collapsed against a concrete pillar, looking nothing like the composed being who had taken her blood. His clothes were torn, revealing more of the strange inscriptions that covered his chest and arms. Inscriptions that now seemed to be at war, gold and black lines writhing beneath his skin like battling serpents. But it was his face that shocked her most. The scar had expanded, no longer confined to the clean line that usually ran from temple to jaw. It now branched across his cheek in fractal patterns, gold and black fighting for territory in his flesh. "Maya." His voice was strained, mismatched eyes finding her in the dimness. "You shouldn't be here." She knelt beside him, medical training kicking in despite the supernatural circumstances. "What happened to you?" "Collection went wrong." Each word seemed to cost him. "Deader tried binding magic, disrupted my balance." Her hands moved automatically, checking for injuries. She could actually treat. His skin burned beneath her touch, far hotter than human fever. "Tell me how to help you." Her voice remained steady, despite the panic rising in her chest. The bond transmitted his pain in waves, making it difficult to think clearly. "Can't." His head fell back against the pillar. "Authority will send another collector. Finish what I started. I don't care about the authority. I care about you." The admission surprised them both. "Tell me what's happening." Kane's eyes, both brighter than she'd ever seen them, gold flaring, black deepening, fixed on her face. Internal war, angel and demon sides, fighting for dominance. As if to illustrate his point, the inscriptions beneath his skin surged, gold temporarily overwhelming black along his left side, then retreating as darkness pushed back. What happens if one side wins? Dissolution. He gritted his teeth against another surge. Can't exist as half. Need balance. Maya's mind raced. Balance. Equilibrium. Homeostasis. These were principles she understood from medicine. The body constantly seeking balance between opposing forces, acid and base, oxygen and carbon dioxide, contraction and relaxation. "My blood," she said suddenly. "You said it changed you. That first collection. It affected your balance somehow. Made the angelic side stronger." Kane's eyes widened slightly. "Yes. Then take more." Maya pushed up her sleeve, extending her arm. "Now." "No." The refusal was immediate. "Too soon. Too dangerous." "More dangerous than dissolution?" She pushed closer. "The contract says 1 collection monthly. It doesn't specify exactly when." "Maya, I can feel you dying." Her voice cracked. "Through whatever this bond is, I can feel it. And I won't just sit here and let it happen." Kane studied her face, conflict evident in his expression. "If I take more now, next month's collection will still be due. Double strain on you. I'll handle it." She placed her wrist directly before him. "Do it." His hand trembled as it closed around her arm. "Not wrist. Not enough. Need stronger connection." Maya understood immediately. "Neck?" A terse nod. She hesitated only a moment before tilting her head, exposing her throat. Everything medical in her screamed against offering the carotid artery to anyone, let alone a supernatural being on the brink of dissolution. But the bond between them pulsed with urgency, with need that transcended medical caution. Kane pulled himself upright, movements pained but determined. When his face neared her throat, she felt his breath, unnaturally hot against her skin. "I might not be able to stop," he whispered, the warning a final act of protection. Maya placed her hand against his chest, feeling the battle raging beneath his skin. "You will." His lips touched her throat. Not a kiss, something more elemental. The now familiar electric sensation bloomed instantly, 1,000 times stronger than before. The pull began. Blood, responding to his call from deep within her veins. Maya gasped as the connection formed. Unlike the controlled collection from her inner elbow, this was raw, primal. She felt her consciousness stretching, expanding beyond physical limitations. Gold light bloomed behind her closed eyelids, then swirling darkness, then both intermingling in patterns too complex to comprehend. Through the bond, she felt the moment her blood entered his system, felt its effect as it spread through his veins, tilting the balance back toward equilibrium. The warring inscriptions beneath his skin slowed their battle, gold and black reaching a tentative truce. The warehouse around them seemed to fade, reality narrowing to the point where they connected. Maya's hands gripped his shoulders, unsure if she was pushing him away or holding him closer, as the sensation intensified beyond anything she'd experienced. Then, abruptly, it stopped. Kane pulled back, breaking the connection with visible effort. His breathing was ragged, eyes wild, but the scar had begun to settle, receding back to its usual path across his face. Maya slumped forward, caught in his arms before she could hit the concrete floor. The sudden absence of their connection left her disoriented, as if she'd been violently pulled from a dream. "Maya." His voice sounded different, richer, more resonant. "Maya, look at me." She forced her eyes open. The world tilted, then stabilized. Kane looked transformed. The battle beneath his skin had calmed, inscriptions still visible but no longer at war. His scar had settled into a form she hadn't seen before. Neither the surgical precision nor the jagged tear, but something in between, as if the two sides had reached compromise. Did it work? Her voice was weak, distant to her own ears. Yes. His hands cradled her face, eyes searching hers with concern. But at what cost to you? The room spun lazily around them. Maya was familiar enough with blood loss to recognize the symptoms. Lightheadedness, cold extremities, rapid pulse. But this was more profound than standard donation effects. Something fundamental had shifted between them. The bond, she managed, accelerated. His expression tightened. I took too much. How much? Not volume, essence. He lifted her carefully, moving to prop her against the pillar where he had been. The neck creates deeper connection than arm or wrist. And your intention, your willingness, intensified everything. Maya fought against encroaching darkness at the edges of her vision. Is that bad? It's unprecedented. His hand brushed hair from her face, touch lingering against her cheek. No collector forms this kind of bond with a debtor. It's forbidden. Why? The question seemed important, though she couldn't focus enough to understand why. Because it compromises us. A shadow crossed his features. The authority requires emotional distance, clinical detachment. Maya felt herself sliding toward unconsciousness despite her efforts to remain present. The world began to fade, Kane's face the only clear point in her narrowing vision. Don't leave me, she whispered, unsure if she meant physically or through their bond. Never. The word held weight, promise. But you need medical attention. Blood sugar, fluids, rest. Hospital? No. His voice was firm. What's happened to you won't register on medical tests, and what's happened to me can't be seen by others. With effort, Maya focused on his face. The inscriptions that had been confined to his chest and arms now traced delicate patterns up his neck, disappearing into his hairline. Gold and black intertwined, but now with threads of red. Her blood, visualized in his supernatural biology. Your place, she managed. Take me home. Kane gathered her into his arms as if she weighed nothing, rising smoothly despite his earlier weakness. The movement sent another wave of dizziness washing over her. Stay with me, he murmured. Against her hair. The bond between them pulsed, stronger than before, but more balanced, like a conversation rather than an alarm. Through it, she felt his concern, his guilt, and beneath that, something else. Something that hadn't been there before. As consciousness slipped away, Maya felt herself falling not into emptiness, but into him. Into their shared connection. Into the gold and black patterns that now seemed to include strands of her own essence. Her last coherent thought was a realization. This was no longer about honoring her father's debt. Something new had begun in that warehouse. Something neither the authority nor Kane himself had anticipated. And somehow, despite the danger, despite the unknown consequences, she couldn't bring herself to regret it. Maya awoke to the sound of rain against windows and the sensation of being watched. Her bedroom was dimly lit by a single lamp in the corner, the familiar surroundings somehow altered by the presence occupying the chair beside her bed. Kane sat motionless, mismatched eyes reflecting lamplight. One gold, one midnight black. The scar on his face had settled into its new form, neither surgical nor jagged, but a balance between the two. More striking were the visible inscriptions that now crawled up his neck and disappeared into his hairline, gold and black intertwined with threads of crimson. How long was I unconscious? Her voice emerged raspy, throat dry. 17 hours. He leaned forward, offering a glass of water. Your body needed recovery time. Maya pushed herself upright, muscles protesting. The water tasted unusually sweet, infused with something she couldn't identify. I added glucose and electrolytes. Kane explained, seeing her expression. And something else, for the bond effects. What effects? He hesitated. Accelerated connection creates dependency, physical symptoms if separated too quickly. Like withdrawal, Maya translated, medical mind cataloging implications. You drugged me? I eased the transition. No apology in his tone. The alternative would have been unpleasant. She set down the glass, studying him properly. Something had changed beyond the visible marks on his skin. The careful distance he'd maintained had collapsed, replaced by an almost tangible intensity. He watched her with the focus of a guardian, a collector, and something else she couldn't, or wouldn't, name. You stayed. She hadn't meant it as an accusation, but he flinched slightly. I couldn't leave. His voice lowered. Not just for your safety, for mine. The bond between them pulsed at his admission, stronger than before the warehouse incident. What had been background awareness had become a constant presence, like a second heartbeat echoing her own. The collection from my neck. It changed things. Not a question. Yes. He stood, moving to the window. Rain traced paths down the glass, catching city lights in fractured patterns. Neck collections are usually reserved for final payments. They create permanent alterations. Maya swung her legs over the bed's edge, testing her balance. The world remained steady, though she felt lighter somehow, as if something essential had been extracted beyond just blood. Define permanent. Kane turned from the window, expression grave. The bond won't fade between collections now. It will only intensify. And the authority? We'll know something has changed. His hands clenched, then relaxed with visible effort. If they discover the nature of our connection, they'll recall me immediately. The clinical euphemism hung between them. Recall, dissolution, death, but worse. Can they monitor the bond directly? Maya stood, approaching him cautiously. Not its exact nature, only whether collections occur as scheduled. His eyes tracked her movement. But if another collector encounters either of us, they would sense it. She stopped before him, close enough to feel the unnatural heat radiating from his skin. So we hide it. A shadow of a smile touched his lips. You make it sound simple. Isn't it? We maintain the schedule. You collect monthly as required. Nothing in the contract specifies we can't have additional interactions. Maya. Her name emerged like a warning. This isn't a technicality to exploit. The bond forming between us violates fundamental principles of the authority system, which are separation, hierarchy, control. Each word emerged with distaste. Collectors aren't meant to form attachments. We're tools, conduits. Maya reached up, fingers hovering near the scar on his face. May I? After a moment's hesitation, he nodded. Her fingertips traced the transformed mark. Unlike before, when her touch had triggered visible response in his angelic nature, now both sides reacted equally, gold and black swirling beneath his skin in synchronized patterns rather than competition. Balance, she murmured. My blood did this. Your intention did this. His voice roughened. Your willingness to save me despite the cost. The moment stretched between them, charged with possibilities neither was prepared to acknowledge. Maya withdrew her hand, stepping back. I need to understand what we're dealing with, she said, medical pragmatism reasserting itself. Full disclosure. What happens now? With the bond? With the collections? With the authority? Kane studied her face, then nodded once. Decision made. The bond is now a true mate bond, not just a collection. Connection. He spoke carefully, watching her reaction. Permanent. Irreversible. Distance will cause physical pain for both of us. Emotions will bleed through increasingly. Maya absorbed this, mind calculating implications. And the scheduled collections? Must continue. 10 more required to fulfill the contract. From my neck? No. The word emerged forcefully. Never again. Too dangerous for you. We returned to the arm, maintained the appearance of standard collections. And the authority? Kane moved past her, pacing the small bedroom. The inscriptions beneath his skin seemed to shift with his agitation, though they remained balanced between gold and black. They'll send an observer for the next collection. Standard procedure when a contract shows irregularities. Cold dread pooled in Maya's stomach. They know already? They know something disrupted my essence. They don't know what. He stopped pacing, facing her directly. When the observer comes, you must show only clinical detachment. Any hint of emotional connection will confirm their suspicions. And if they discover the truth, his expression darkened. They'll terminate the contract immediately. By taking all my blood at once, Maya concluded. No. Kane's eyes, both the gold and the black, flared with sudden intensity. By eliminating me and assigning a new collector, the authority doesn't waste viable assets. The implication hit her with physical force. They wouldn't kill her. They'd simply send someone else to continue the collections. Someone without their connection. Someone who would treat her as merely another debt to collect. That's not happening, she said, voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. Tell me how to fool this observer. We can't be near each other before the official collection. The bond is too fresh, too obvious. Kane approached her again, stopping just short of touching. I'll stay away until then. When I return with the observer, you treat me as nothing. More than your father's debt collector. Cold, distant, resentful even. And the bond? They'll feel it, won't they? I can mask most of it temporarily. A skill all collectors develop. His mouth set in a grim line. But you must control your responses, physical and emotional. Any reaction to the connection between us will be immediately suspect. Maya nodded, mind already formulating strategies. As a doctor, she'd perfected the art of compartmentalization, separating emotion from necessary. Action. When? 3 days. The next scheduled collection. He hesitated, then added, We should separate until then. Minimize connection strength. The thought of him leaving sent unexpected panic through her system. A visceral response beyond rational thought. The bond between them pulsed with shared anxiety. Is that even possible now? She asked quietly. Not without discomfort. Kane's expression softened fractionally. But necessary for the performance we must give. Maya crossed to her bedside table, retrieving her phone. 3 days of unexplained absence from the hospital had generated dozens of missed calls and messages. Reality waited beyond this room, beyond the supernatural bond that had altered everything. I need to call the hospital, she said. Create a cover story for my absence. Some contagious illness that explains why I can't return yet. Kane nodded approval. Practical. The observer will expect you to maintain normal human appearance. What about you? Where will you go? Somewhere I can prepare. He didn't elaborate. The separation will be difficult for both of us. Maya set down the phone, medical curiosity overriding immediate concerns. You keep saying that. What exactly will happen when you leave? Physical symptoms first. Similar to withdrawal, chills, elevated heart rate, insomnia. His voice remained clinical, detached. Then emotional transference through the bond. My feelings becoming yours. Yours becoming mine. That's already happening, she observed. I can feel your concern. Your fear for me. Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, perhaps, that she could read him so clearly. It will intensify without proximity to stabilize it. Dreams will become invasive. The word choice sent an unexpected shiver through her. Invasive how? My memories becoming yours, temporarily. A shadow crossed his features. Not all are pleasant. Maya considered this. Access to his memories, his experiences as a collector, as a Nephilim caught between worlds, knowledge that might help them navigate what was happening. "I can handle it," she said with more confidence than she felt. "You shouldn't have to." Guilt colored his voice. "This bond, what's happening between us, it wasn't part of your father's debt. Maybe it was always meant to be this way." The words emerged before she could analyze their implication. "Maybe that's why his contract transferred to me specifically." Kane studied her face, searching for something. "You believe in destiny, Dr. Chen?" "I believe in patterns." She met his gaze steadily. "And this doesn't feel random." For a moment, something like hope flickered across his features, quickly suppressed. The bond between them thrummed with potential, with questions neither was ready to voice. 3 days, he said finally, moving toward the bedroom door. "Prepare yourself. The observer will sense any deception." "I'm not the one they're suspicious of," she pointed out. "No, but you're the variable they didn't account for." His hand rested on the doorknob. "My loyalty has never been questioned before." The admission hung between them, heavy with implication. This connection threatened everything. His position, her safety, the careful system of debts and collections that had functioned for centuries. Kane. His name felt different on her lips now, weighted with the blood bond between them. What happens after the contract is fulfilled? After all 12 collections? He paused, back toward her, shoulders tense. Collectors and debtors never see each other again. Clean separation. The bond fades over years. But this bond, the mate bond, it won't fade, will it? Slowly, he turned back to face her. "No, it won't." "Then what happens to us?" The question expanded to fill the room. Impossible. Unanswerable. Kane's expression shifted through multiple emotions before settling into careful neutrality. "First, we survive the observer." He opened the door. "Then we face that question." As he stepped into the hallway, Maya felt the bond between them stretch painfully, like muscle fibers tearing. A wave of dizziness washed over her, balance momentarily lost. "Remember," Kane said from the threshold, his own discomfort evident in the tightness around his eyes. 3 days, no contact. Then you must treat me as nothing but a collector." He closed the door behind him, and Maya felt something inside her tear. Not physically, but essentially, as if part of her soul had departed with him. The bond stretched thinner, a thread of gold and black and red connecting them despite growing distance. She sank onto the edge of the bed, hand pressed against her sternum where the pain concentrated. 3 days of separation. 3 days to prepare for a performance that would determine both their fates. And beyond that, a future neither of them understood, bound together by blood and something deeper that had no place in the authorities' careful system of debts and collections. 3 days of separation had taught Maya more about the bond than any explanation could have. Her body rebelled against Kane's absence, fever alternating with bone-deep chills, heart racing, then slowing to a concerning rhythm, sleep punctuated by dreams that weren't her own. Memories flowed through the stretched connection between them, centuries of collections, faces contorted in fear, the weight of contracts fulfilled. Not all the memories were dark. She caught glimpses of beauty, too. Sunrises watched from impossible heights, music that made colors bloom in the air, moments of connection with humans who showed kindness despite their fear. All Kane's experiences, bleeding into her consciousness through their bond. By the 3rd day, Maya had learned to differentiate her thoughts from the fragments coming through their connection. More concerning were the emotions, rage that wasn't hers, grief too ancient to be her own, and beneath it all, a loneliness so profound it made her own isolation seem trivial. Now, as sunset approached on the day of the scheduled collection, Maya moved through her apartment with methodical precision, preparing the space. Clinical, detached. Nothing that suggested intimacy or connection beyond the contractual obligation. She'd removed her father's photos, unable to bear the idea of the observer seeing them. The living room had been transformed into something resembling an examination room. Chair positioned under the strongest light, medical, supplies arranged on a side table, surfaces cleared of personal items. The bond between them grew more insistent with each passing minute, signaling Kane's approach. Maya focused on her breathing, in through the nose, out through the mouth, techniques learned during medical training to steady hands during delicate procedures. She would need steady hands today, steady emotions, steady thoughts. The doorbell rang precisely at 7. Maya counted to 5 before answering, schooling her features into cool neutrality. The door swung open to reveal Kane, immaculate in a charcoal suit that revealed nothing of the warehouse incident or their escalated bond. The scar on his face had reverted to its surgical precision, and the visible inscriptions that had crawled up his neck had vanished. Beside him stood a woman who could only be the observer. Tall, with platinum hair cropped close to her scalp. She wore a white suit that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. Her eyes were uniformly silver, with no visible pupils or irises, just reflective surfaces that showed Maya's own distorted image. Dr. Chen. Kane's voice was formal, distant. May we enter? Maya stepped back, gesturing them inside with a sweep of her arm. Let's get this over with. The observer's silver eyes tracked her movements, head tilting slightly as if listening to something beyond human hearing. When she spoke, her voice was melodious, but emotionless. Maya Chen, daughter of James Chen, inheritor of contract. C7629. The words emerged in perfect cadence. I am Raziel, observer for the authority. Maya inclined her head slightly, acknowledging without warmth. You're here to watch him take my blood, so watch. If the observer was offended by her terseness, she gave no indication. Her silver eyes reflected the apartment's lights in fragmented patterns. The contract has experienced irregularities. Raziel circled Maya slowly, maintaining precise distance. The scheduled collections must continue, without further disruption. I'm aware of my obligations. Maya moved to the prepared chair, rolling up her sleeve to expose her inner elbow. 1 pint. No more, no less. Kane remained near the door, watching their interaction with carefully controlled expression. Through the bond, Maya felt his tension, tightly leashed, but present beneath the professional facade. Proceed, collector. Raziel positioned herself at the perfect observation angle, hands clasped before her. Kane approached, movements precise and measured. When he reached the chair, he knelt beside it, exactly as he had done during their first collection. His eyes, the gold intentionally dimmed, the black carefully controlled, met Maya's briefly. The connection must be established, he explained to the observer, voice detached. Standard procedure. Raziel nodded once, silver eyes unblinking. Kane took Maya's arm, fingers circling her wrist. The moment their skin made contact, the bond between them flared. Painfully. 3 days of separation collapsing in an instant. Maya bit the inside of her cheek hard enough to taste blood, suppressing any visible reaction. Through their connection, she felt Kane doing the same, channeling the surge into internal pathways, away from external manifestation. The observer must not see what passed between them. Proceed with the collection, Raziel instructed. Kane positioned his mouth near Maya's inner elbow, breath warm against her skin. Unlike their first clinical collection, she now knew what to expect, the pull that began deep within her veins, the sensation of something essential responding to his call. The first draw started gently, carefully controlled. Maya kept her expression neutral, gaze fixed on the wall above Kane's head. The observer's silver eyes missed nothing, tracking minute changes in both their expressions. Through the bond, Maya felt Kane's struggle, fighting the instinct to deepen the connection, to access the neck bond they'd so established in the warehouse. The mate bond pulled at them both, demanding recognition. Halfway through the collection, Raziel spoke, voice cutting through the charged silence. The debtor shows unusual tolerance. Her head tilted, silver eyes reflecting fragmented light. Most experience significant discomfort during extraction. "I'm a doctor," Maya replied evenly. "I'm familiar with blood draws. This is not a medical procedure." Raziel stepped closer. The essence extraction should trigger instinctive resistance. Maya felt warning pulse through the bond from Cain. Careful. The observer was testing her. "Perhaps I've developed tolerance." She met those silver eyes without flinching. "This is the second collection after all." "Perhaps." Raziel's tone suggested neither belief nor disbelief, merely recording the observation. Her attention shifted to Cain. The collector demonstrates unusual restraint as well. Cain didn't pause the collection, but Maya felt his apprehension spike through their connection. "The contract specifies precise amounts," he responded between draws. "Precision requires control." "Indeed." Raziel circled them once more. "Yet your control appears different from previous collections, more balanced." The observation struck dangerously close to the truth. The warehouse incident had balanced Cain's dual natures, a change that would be visible to other supernatural entities if they looked closely enough. Maya felt panic beginning to rise and forced it down, away from the bond, away from any external sign the observer might detect. Cain's hand tightened fractionally around her wrist. Reassurance, warning. "The collection nears completion," he said, voice steady. "Final extraction approaching." The pull intensified slightly, not enough to suggest anything beyond standard procedure, but enough to complete the required amount. Maya maintained her neutral expression, even as the familiar gold and black patterns bloomed behind her closed eyelids. When Cain withdrew, breaking the connection, Maya allowed herself a small wince. Expected, normal for a human experiencing blood loss. She pressed gauze to her inner elbow, securing it with medical tape from the side table. "Collection complete," Cain announced, rising to his feet. "1 pint, as specified in the contract." Raziel's silver eyes moved between them, searching for something. Maya kept her breathing steady, her posture relaxed but not comfortable, her expression mildly resentful, all the reactions expected from someone fulfilling an unwanted obligation. "The authority acknowledges payment received." Raziel extended her hand toward Cain. What happened next occurred so quickly Maya almost missed it. Cain placed his hand in Raziel's, and silver light flowed from the contact point up his arm, briefly illuminating the hidden inscriptions beneath his skin. For a fraction of a second, threads of red, Maya's blood, became visible within the pattern, before Cain suppressed the reaction. But the observer had seen. Her silver eyes widened fractionally, head tilting at that unnatural angle. "Interesting," she murmured. "The debtor's essence shows unusual integration patterns." Cain withdrew his hand smoothly. "The Chen bloodline has unique properties, noted in the original contract." The lie emerged so naturally Maya almost believed it herself. Through their bond, she felt his calculated risk, offering a plausible explanation that the observer would need to verify, buying them time. "No such notation appears in my records." Raziel's voice remained melodious, but took on a sharper edge. "Perhaps your records are incomplete." Maya spoke up, drawing those silver eyes back to her. "My father was a research scientist specializing in hematology. His blood was the subject of numerous studies." Not entirely a lie. Her father had indeed studied blood, his own and others, though for medical rather than supernatural purposes. Raziel considered this. Silver eyes. Unreadable. "The authority will review the original contract terms." "Of course." Cain's voice betrayed nothing of the tension Maya felt through their bond. "The next collection remains scheduled for 30 days hence?" "Yes." Raziel moved toward the door with that same unnatural grace. "The authority may require additional observation for future collections." Warning delivered, She turned to Maya. The contract binds, regardless of unforeseen complications. Remember this, daughter of James. Chen. With that, she glided from the apartment, leaving the door open behind her. A silent command for Cain to follow. He lingered only long enough to meet Maya's eyes, volumes communicated in that brief exchange. Caution, concern, and beneath it all, a fierce protectiveness that neither could fully suppress. 30 days, he said aloud, formal and detached for any listening ears. Through the bond, different words flowed. Be careful. I'll return soon. Then he was gone, following the observer. Into the hallway, closing the door with a decisive click. Maya remained in the chair, pressing gauze against her inner elbow, feeling the bond between them stretch painfully as Cain moved away. The observer had seen something. Perhaps not the full truth of their connection, but enough to raise suspicion. She rose on unsteady legs, moving to lock the door, then sank against it. The collection had taken its physical toll, but it was the emotional aftermath that threatened to overwhelm her. 3 days of separation, followed by forced distance in the observer's presence, had left the bond raw and demanding. She knows, Maya whispered to the empty apartment, or suspects. Through their stretched connection, she felt Cain's response. Not words, but a wave of determined reassurance. They had survived the first observation. The authority would investigate the false claim about her bloodline, which would buy them time. But time for what? The contract still required 10 more collections. 10 more months under the authorities' increasingly suspicious watch. And at the end of it all, the mate bond between them would remain. Permanent, forbidden, unexplainable within the rigid hierarchy that controlled Cain's existence. Maya pushed away from the door, legs steadier now. They needed a plan beyond mere survival from one collection to the next. They needed answers about what had happened between them, and what it meant for their future. If they even had a future. Cain returned 4 hours after the observer departed. Maya felt his approach through their bond, the stretched connection condensing, sharpening, until his presence outside her door was almost tangible before he even knocked. She opened the door before his knuckles could touch the wood. He stood in the hallway, transforming before her eyes from the composed collector who had left with Raziel to something wilder, more desperate. The careful glamour had fallen away, revealing inscriptions crawling visibly beneath his skin, scar shifting rapidly between forms. "She's gone?" Maya asked, stepping back to let him enter. For now. Cain moved into the apartment with contained urgency. "The authority has summoned me for questioning." The door closed behind him, and the pretense of separation collapsed. He reached for her as she reached for him, the bond between them flaring brilliantly as physical contact restored full connection. Maya felt the echo of his relief merge with her own, 3 days of separation healing in an instant of touch. "When?" she asked, not moving from the circle of his arms. "Tomorrow." His voice rumbled against her hair. "They'll verify your father's contract, searching for the bloodline notation that doesn't exist. And when they don't find it?" Cain pulled back enough to meet her eyes, one gold, one black, both blazing with intensity. "They'll order dissolution." The clinical term hit Maya with physical force. Not death, something worse. The complete unmaking of the being before her, erasing him from existence. "No." The word emerged with unexpected force. "I won't let that happen." Something like wonder crossed his features. "You still don't fully understand what you're facing, Maya. What we've become. Then tell me." She led him to the couch, maintaining physical contact, unwilling to break the connection even momentarily. Everything. No more professional distance. No more collector protocol. The truth. Cain hesitated, then nodded once. Decision made. The mate bond between us isn't just forbidden. It's supposed to be impossible. His fingers interlaced with hers, inscriptions beneath his skin brightening where they touched. Nephilim are designed to be conduits, Nothing more. We collect, we transfer, we move on. But you're more than that. Maya's free hand rose to trace the scar on his face. You have thoughts, feelings, choices. Limited choices, carefully monitored. His expression darkened. The authority creates us with dual natures in constant conflict. Angel and demon balanced in perpetual opposition. It prevents autonomy, prevents connection. Until me. The significance of what had happened between them began to take clearer shape. My blood changed you somehow. Not just your blood. Your choice. His voice softened. In the warehouse, when you offered yourself to save me without expectation of return, it altered something fundamental. Maya remembered that moment. The fear, the determination, the absolute certainty that she couldn't let him dissolve into warring components. The neck collection accelerated everything, Cain continued. But it began with your willingness. No human has ever voluntarily given blood to save a collector. We're feared, hated, tolerated at best. My father made a deal for more time. Different. His hand tightened around hers. You gave freely, expecting nothing. It created something new. The bond between them pulsed with shared understanding. Not just connection, but transformation. Evolution, perhaps. And the authority fears this, Maya concluded, with good reason. Cain's eyes, both the gold and the black, gleamed with dangerous potential. A collector who forms mate bonds is no longer just a conduit. They gain something the authority can't control. What? Choice. The word hung in the air between them. True choice, beyond the limited options built into our design. Maya processed this. Medical mind seeking patterns, connections. That's why Raziel reacted to the red. In your inscriptions. My blood isn't just inside you, it's changing you. Changing us both. He traced a finger along her inner arm where the collection site had been. Have you looked at yourself since the warehouse? Really looked? Confused, Maya glanced down. In the dim apartment lighting, nothing seemed unusual about her skin. But as Cain passed his hand over her arm, a faint luminescence appeared beneath the surface. Delicate patterns that echoed his own inscriptions. Barely visible, but undeniably present. What? She stared, disbelieving. The bond goes both ways. His voice was gentle. My essence flows into you as yours flows into me. Not enough to change what you are, but enough to mark you as connected. Horror and fascination warred within her. Does the authority know this can happen? If they did, they would have terminated the contract immediately. His expression hardened, which is exactly what they'll do when they discover the truth tomorrow. Reality crashed, back with brutal force. Tomorrow, Cain would face questioning he couldn't survive. The authority would detect the mate bond, the transformation beginning in both of them, and order his dissolution. We have to run. The words emerged before Maya could fully consider their implications. Cain shook his head. The contract binds me. I physically cannot flee or resist recall. Then we break the contract. Desperation edged her voice. There must be a way. Only two options exist. His voice grew. Clinical again, collector protocol surfacing. Complete fulfillment of all 12 collections or... He hesitated, unwilling to continue. Or what? Maya pressed. Substitution. The word emerged reluctantly. A willing party takes on the remaining obligation. Understanding dawned with cold clarity. Someone else takes my place. Yes, but the only substitute the authority accepts is the collector assigned to the contract. Maya stared at him, implications crystallizing. You would take on my father's debt? How is that even possible? A collector can absorb the remaining obligation, converting it to a different form of service. His expression revealed nothing of the cost such action would entail. The debtor goes free. The contract is fulfilled. And what happens to you? The bond between them transmitted his reluctance to answer. his fear of her reaction. Salt stasis. The words emerged toneless. Physical form transmuted to salt, consciousness preserved within. 1 year of stasis for each remaining collection. 10 collections remained. 10 years of conscious imprisonment in an immobile form. That's torture, Maya whispered. That's the price. No self-pity colored his voice, only resignation. And the only option that preserves your freedom and my existence, however limited. The bond between them pulsed with the weight of his decision. Already made, she realized. He had come tonight not to discuss options, but to say goodbye. No. Maya stood, pulling away from him for the first time since he'd entered the apartment. There has to be another way. Maya. Her name and his voice carried centuries of weariness. I've existed for nearly a millennium. I've watched the rise and fall of empires, witnessed every cruelty humans and non-humans can devise. 10 years of stasis is nothing compared to your freedom. It's everything. The words burst from her. 10 years of conscious imprisonment while I what? Go on with my life knowing you're suffering because of my father's choices, because of our bond. Cain rose, moving toward her with that inhuman grace that marked him as other. Yes, that's exactly what you'll do. Why? The question contained multitudes. Why sacrifice? Why now? Why for her? He stopped before her, close enough that she could see the inscriptions moving beneath his skin. Gold, black, and red in constant motion. Because in 1,000 years of collections, you're the first person who looked at me and saw something worth saving. His voice roughened. The first connection that made me question what I am, what I could be. The truth of his words resonated through their bond, undeniable. Maya felt tears gather, hot and unwelcome. And now you're choosing stasis. I'm choosing you. His hands framed her face, thumbs brushing away tears that had escaped despite her efforts. The authority will allow the substitution because it maintains their system. The contract fulfilled, the balance preserved. And our bond will remain. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Muted by distance and time, but present. You'll feel me. No, I still exist. For 10 years. The span stretched before her, impossible to comprehend. A medical career. He countered gently. A life without the burden of monthly collections. Freedom to choose your path without supernatural entanglements. Maya closed her eyes, feeling the connection between them. Vibrant, alive, complex beyond explanation. The thought of it reduced to distant awareness of Cain, conscious but unreachable, was unbearable. When? She couldn't bring herself to accept his decision, but needed to understand the timeline. Dawn. His hands dropped from her face. I go to the authority for questioning, offer substitution before they can order dissolution. Less than 12 hours remained. 12 hours before he would sacrifice freedom to preserve hers. 12 hours of connection before 10 years of separation. The bond between them thrummed with shared grief. Shared resignation. Maya felt his certainty. This was the only viable path forward. The alternative was his complete erasure from existence and her continued bondage to the contract. Stay with me tonight. The request emerged unbidden. Don't waste what little time we have left. Surprise flickered across his features, followed by something deeper, more complex. The bond will only strengthen, make separation more painful. I don't care. Maya stepped closer, eliminating the space between them. 10 years without you. I need something to remember, to hold on to. For a moment, she thought he might refuse, might choose the kinder path of immediate separation. Then his control fractured, the careful distance maintained even through their bond collapsing completely. Maya. Her name became something sacred in his voice. The connection between them flared brilliantly as his mouth found hers. Not a collection, not a blood bond, but something entirely new. Gold and black patterns bloomed behind her. closed eyelids, intertwining with red that was distinctly hers. The inscriptions beneath his skin brightened, visible even through his clothing, mirrored by the faint luminescence that had begun to mark her own skin. When they separated, both breathing unsteadily, Maya saw his scar had settled into its balanced form, neither angelic precision nor demonic jaggedness, but something uniquely his own. "Dawn comes too soon," he murmured against her temple. "Then we don't waste a moment." Maya led him toward the bedroom, the bond between them transmitting everything words couldn't express. Fear, determination, and beneath it all, something neither was ready to name, but both felt with undeniable clarity. Outside, night deepened toward the inevitable sunrise that would take him from her. Inside, two beings, one human, one not quite, clung to hours that passed too quickly, forging memories meant to sustain them through a decade of conscious separation. And through their strengthening bond flowed a dangerous, beautiful truth that even the authority couldn't have anticipated. Transformation had begun that couldn't be undone. Connection formed that transcended their separate natures. Whether it would be enough to survive what dawn would bring remained to be seen. What would you give up for someone who was meant to take everything from you? Maya's journey reminds us that sometimes the debts we inherit become the paths to our most profound connections. In a world where supernatural forces tried to keep them apart, two souls found something the authority never anticipated, a bond stronger than ancient contracts, deeper than blood itself. The line between sacrifice and salvation is often thinner than we imagine. Would you have the courage to offer your blood to save someone designed to collect it? Would you surrender a decade of your existence to preserve another's freedom? These choices define us more than the circumstances we're born into or the debts passed down to us. If this story touched your heart, remember that connections are what make us truly alive, whether human or something more. Share this tale with someone whose presence in your life defies explanation, someone who changed you in ways you never expected. Like Maya and Cain, sometimes the most beautiful transformations begin with the most impossible bonds. Follow for more stories that explore the boundaries between worlds and the hearts that dare to cross them. Like, share, and let me know in the comments what impossible choice you would have made.